in for a treat. So I'm going to give everyone a second to join for our co-host today to join. And like I said, you're just in for a treat. She is absolutely awesome. So I will just wait one more second. No, there she is. Let me turn off my alarm. Okay, I think, let me see. I'm going to invite her in now. I'm waiting on her to connect. Hey, Kate.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Victoria?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining today,
Of course.
for doing this. I'm so excited. So just to kind of tell everyone more about you, I'm going to kind of give a little bit of your background. So she has a Bachelor's of Science in Kinesiology, a Master's in Sports Exercise, is a mental performance coach. She co-founded the podcast, The Kentucky Resilience Lab, and also coaches at F45 for fun. So I'm so excited to just hear from you.
Yeah, that's me. That's a lot, but it's me in a nutshell for sure.
Yes, and nothing wrong with that. All amazing things that you're doing. So first off, why don't you tell our viewers, our replay watchers, more about your podcast and what you do?
For sure. So the Kentucky Resilience Lab is basically just a resource. So as you mentioned in that awesome introduction, by the way, my master's is in sport and exercise psychology. And a few of my colleagues and I, as we were going through our graduate studies, we kind of came to the conclusion that this isn't really a resource that is super available to a lot of people. And we thought that, what better way than to kind of be pioneers for our field. But then by, making this resource available to those that maybe aren't in a Division I NCAA institution, or maybe aren't athletes at all, because a lot of sport and exercise psychology, it's primarily focused on sport just because of the appealing nature of elite sport, but also exercise psychology and how that plays a huge role in overall mental health, and your overall well-being. So we really just wanted to kind of take these skills and make them available to a wide variety of people. So what we've done in this podcast, we're actually kind of compiling our second season. Our first season was such a hit. What we've done is we have created content in anywhere between 15 to 25-minute segments, and just made them available in a podcast form. So teaching these psychological skills, making that available to whoever wants to learn more, wants to improve their mental performance and mental capacity. And then we've got a couple special episodes, and those are a little bit longer. So we've got some interviews, and those are on a variety of different topics that are just relevant to the field in and of itself. So we've got some people speaking on social justice and how that plays and has implications in a sport context. We've got a doctor talking about the potential dangers of playing sport in the midst of a global pandemic and how to protect yourself in that sense. So we've got a few different special episodes that are also really cool, just if you like sports, if you like overall physical and mental health.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I definitely am going to be tuning in, downloading that, and I will make sure to link all of Kate's information, her podcast, all of that, to the replay of this video so that you can stay plugged in. So how did you get into this field of work? It's pretty interesting,
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. So, well, kind of a quick background about me. I've always played sports. I've always been an athlete, and I still consider myself an athlete. Now, I didn't play in college, but you know, I I apologize. You can kind of see the sweaty hair. Just leaving the gym. That's an athlete in my world, right? So I actually saw a mental performance coach when I was in high school, not knowing that she was a mental performance coach. She was just, Stacy that I went to see on Thursdays. And she was really impactful in not just improving my mental performance in sport, but also improving my mental performance in all facets of my life. So kind of fast forward, I go to UK for undergrad, and at this point, me, along with every other person, thought that I was going to be a doctor, but primarily in sport medicine. So I at least had that, predetermined, which is why I chose for kinesiology rather than just like biology or whatnot. So a few years under my belt, I start kind of deciding that I don't want to go to med school, but I want to stick with physiology. That was a really interesting idea to me. So I kind of had this plan that I was going to get my master's in exercise physiology and then maybe become a sport physiologist or a clinical physiologist. I hadn't really decided. So fast forward, I had to take just this very basic introductory level course for sport and exercise psychology. And I ended up really enjoying it because I didn't even know it was a field. It actually prompted me to pick up a minor in psychology and continue my studies in that regard. Long story short, we were starting this brand new master's degree program by the time that I was a senior in undergrad. And the director of the program, kindly reached out to me and said, I'm looking for a few invested students. And I think just with you already being in the department, already, knowing what this university has to offer, I think you would be a really integral part in this, up and coming not just graduate degree program, but field. So it was a really dynamic process. And I'm glad that I ended up doing what I did because I almost got to mold this degree program into what I wanted it to be. That being said, I also added in a high performance coaching certificate to really add that physical, physiological capacity into it. I think that's where I'm a little bit different, or I'm very different actually from most mental performance coaches, because sports psychology, people hear that and they think a therapist for athletes. And quite frankly, a lot of mental performance coaches are behavioral in nature. Like their background is in clinical psychology, whereas I'm strictly performance. A lot of people would think that almost, that's a disadvantage. I think that's an advantage because I'm so honed in on the performance enhancement piece. I'm not even attempting to go into that clinical realm. And I also have that physical background that I can engage on that mind-body connection. I can really play that up. And I think that's something that's definitely lacking in the field.
So with that being said, you make a great point. Of course, I think some people can be scared of being more specialized because they're like, well, then I can't service everyone. But you ultimately can't service everyone anyways, and the right people for you will find you, or you will definitely find them. So with that being said, how have you seen a connection between the physical and the mental, especially during your studies and just in your work?
Absolutely. Well, personally, I know that, I'll go back to myself as an athlete. If I'm not in a right headspace, if I'm not mentally there, that workout is going to be trash. right? And I think we can all really attest to that. And then on the other realm, on the other end of that spectrum, if we don't have a super great workout, then we're really displeased with ourselves. Maybe we start engaging in some negative self-talk. So it's just this cyclical pattern. And if we can recognize where that disconnect is occurring and bolster that, maybe patch up that disconnect. Maybe it's in a negative self-talk. Maybe it's we are not at our optimal level of arousal, and matching that, getting us back into that good, positive, high-performing mindset, then our physical selves are going to operate completely, as planned, completely engaged. And something that I tell my athletes all the time when I'm working with them, if there is one part of the machine that is not working, then the whole machine will shut down. Whether that be, your brain, whether that be your knee, whether that be whatever. If there's one part of the machine, and I'm using this metaphor as if our bodies were a machine, then the product isn't there, right? We can't produce a good quality performance.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So, and yeah, just to kind of piggyback on that, it's so true because people don't realize, and I realize in my work and with like working with people with Arbonne, my clients, that people don't understand that what you put in your body affects your brain, it affects your gut, it affects your skin. What you put on your skin then is absorbed into your bloodstream, goes into your body. It's the same. You have to correct yourself, that negative self-talk. You have to shut that off, stop it, and replace it with something good. I mean, I don't have any kids yet, but it's just like with kids. Like if you tell them, don't do that, don't do that. Well, maybe instead of saying, don't do that, maybe replace it with something else.
Right.
Better, because you're going to be more apt to want to do the thing that you shouldn't do, or you shouldn't think of. Don't think about this. Don't think about this. Those activities they say, don't think about an elephant
Right.
jumping in a pool. Well, what
Yeah.
elephant jumping in a pool. So
right.
It's the same. You have to redirect to something positive. That's amazing. So as far as tips for those watching, because I'm sure I want to know, and I'm sure those watching and that'll watch the replay want to know, do you have any tips for, boosting your brain or increasing your mental performance in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of keeping with this theme of the mind-body connection, I'm a firm believer in, eating, like feeding your brain. What you put into your body absolutely affects the way that your brain functions. So if you have a tendency to eat, really processed foods, fast foods, high fatty foods, then your brain is actually going to operate in a sluggish manner. Whereas if you focus more on nutrient dense whole foods, your brain can fire on all cylinders. So kind of keeping with that theme of the mind body connection. Also keeping with that theme, get out and get that exercise, because exercise on even 30 minutes a day of very leisurely exercise, walking around your neighborhood for 30 minutes, it releases endorphins, it releases serotonin, it releases feel good hormones in your body. So your brain actually interprets, your body interprets a better mood. You are more likely to be positive in the way that you view things, the way that you approach a situation might be considered an opportunity to grow rather than a block in your path. So there, those are some really easy things that everybody can do, but also make sure that you're prioritizing yourself. And I know especially females are we have a tendency to put everybody else in front of us, right? To put work in front of us, to put, I mean, I don't have any kids either, but you know, to put kids in front of us, to put our neighbor's dog that needed to go out, you know, whatever. We put every reason out there not to do what we need to do to take care of ourselves, but to take care of everybody else. But truthfully, we cannot successfully and completely take care of everyone else if we're not taking care of ourselves first. And that's another thing that I tell a lot of my clients. In order to optimize your mental performance, you have to prioritize yourself. You have to pour into your cup before you can even, you know, think about pouring into somebody else's, before you can even think about operating on a, you know, gold standard. So I think those are, yeah, just some of my really quick tips. You know, eat right, take care of your body, go out and do what's good for your body, but also take time for yourself. And it means, you know, read that book. You read that book. If it means you watch an episode of like Real Housewives, then that's what it is, right?
Yes.
But we all need to just like chill out. And sometimes even, I understand that's easier said than done, and even I struggle with that as a mental performance coach myself. So what I'll do is I'll write in that time. Like I wrote in on my calendar and marked it off in my calendar with all of my colleagues that have access to my calendar. You know, I am at the gym. Do not reach out to me. I mark off in my day, like I have 30 minutes where I'm not looking at my phone and I'm reading. I go ahead and I plan my food out in advance. So it's just kind of things like that that you can take control of your life before things get in the way for you to use them as a reason not to prioritize yourself.
Absolutely. And you know, self-care is self-love. I preach that all the time. And it don't feel bad to take that time because you
Right.
need it, because you're a better person when you take that time.
Absolutely.
So I totally agree with everything that you said. And, you know, I've seen a lot that anxiety is increasing during this pandemic. Have you experienced that maybe with clients that you've seen an increase?
Yeah. So I have absolutely noticed that I don't want to say mental health, but mental performance is absolutely decreasing. And, you know, I can't speak because I'm not board certified. I don't have a clinical certification of that sort. But I know even just with my athletes, the fact that there is so much unknown causes a lot of stress, and it causes a lot of distress, because sometimes, you know, there's eustress, and we can build on that. We can use that as momentum. But in this case, it's causing a lot of distress because it's coming from, you know, a point of uncertainty. It's coming from a point of uncontrollable factors. And you know, a sports psych terminology, we have this term called controllable and an uncontrollable. And obviously a global pandemic is not within our control, right? So just this consistent feeling of uncertainty, this consistent feeling of, you know, not knowing what the future holds. At the drop of a hat, an athlete's season can be canceled. At the drop of a hat, you know, someone's wedding could be canceled. We don't know. So overall, I think people are looking to the future rather than engaging in the present, and you know, focusing on the past, focusing on the future. Those are just distractions. You know, they're distractions from within, but they are distracting you away from being mentally engaged. So you can't perform at an optimal level. You can't mentally perform to your highest capacity if you are engaged, enthralled in what could happen in the future or what has happened in the past. So, like I said, I can't really speak on patterns of mental health just out of, for legality purposes, but
Yeah.
I definitely would venture to say that mental performance, at least with my clients and honestly with myself, I'm guilty of it too, right? Mental performance, I would say, has endured a steady decline over the course of the past few months due to the uncontrollable nature of what's going on with COVID. But that's when you really have to challenge yourself to stay consistent. You really have to challenge yourself to take care of yourself and prioritize yourself. Do the things that you need to do. Take care of your body, take care of your brain, read, get outside when it's still sunny. Do the things that we all know are physically good for us, because that only bolsters our mental functioning, our mental operation as well.
Yes. So then from maybe a performance point of view, mental performance, or mental performance, for maybe someone that is struggling with anxiety, what advice would you give them? Like, what advice would you give to someone that you're coaching, for example?
Absolutely. So it's just taking one step at a time, right? And it's so easy to look at the big picture. But if you can unpack the big picture, and maybe even if you're considering a challenge or a goal, unpack that into tiny, tiny, tiny little goals to where you have a win on a daily basis. You come out with a W at the end of every day, because all that does is it builds your self-efficacy. So self-efficacy is the belief that we have the resources, we have the capacity to be successful, right? So if we successfully accomplish something on a daily basis, then it makes sense that we believe we have the capacity to be successful, right? We have the resources to be successful. Beyond that, it also improves your self-confidence. Personal experience, personal success is the number one way to build self-efficacy and to build self-confidence. So if you can break down your goals into like tiny little fragments to where you can cross that thing off on a day-to-day basis. I mean, honestly, sometimes I will write in my agenda something that I've already done, because the feeling, the successful sensation of being able to cross something off my list, or knowing that I've completed that for the day, it again, it releases that serotonin. It releases those feel good hormones, that even some testosterone, that it releases some pride in your body. So your brain interprets it as if you just were successful, because you were. So that only keeps your motivation going into the next day. I think absolutely that's something that we all need to be better at. We all have room to improve upon. And what I've even begun to challenge myself is to wake up and set those mini goals, right? We all have these huge, lofty goals. I know by 2025, I want to have a PhD. And that's a huge goal, right?
Yeah.
But how am I going to break that down? Because in my brain, I'm thinking, well, what if this time next year we're still in a pandemic? Like, what? We don't know. So every day I think, all right, today, how am I going to do one or two things that is going to work toward that giant goal? And today, those one or two things were to read an article that was emailed to me by a girlfriend on a topic that is relevant to my field, and two, to go outside and like listen. It sounds kind of silly, but I don't mentally engage in my surroundings as often as I should, and I have another goal of practicing what I preach. And that is one thing that I oftentimes preach, is to just be mentally engaged in your surroundings and your environment. So that was, for 5 minutes, I sat outside and I just listened and I watched. And it was interesting. It was eye-opening. So I know I kind of just talked in circles, but long story short, break it up, break any goal, any challenge up into tiny wins, because the more achievable and the more successful more achievable that those tasks are, and the more successful that you feel, the more likely that you are going to keep going.
Absolutely. And I saw that Jordan said, the small wins add up to big wins. And that is so true. And, you take all these small steps. I think it makes me think about a book that I think I read in college pretty early on. That's called Little Bets, where you take these little bets on yourself. You have to bet on yourself, because if you don't, how can you expect someone else to take the big bet on you,
Right.
Building that self-confidence, that self-efficacy, because it definitely goes a long, long way. And this has been absolutely awesome. So thank you. But before I end, I want to ask you, just, I like to end with a little fun fact. So
yeah,
what's your fun fact, Kate?
Okay. So, I think it's fun. So I'm one of four kids, but we all are, it's like a his, hers, ours kind of deal. And I think that brings us together even more. We're all so different, and only two of the four of us have the same two biological parents. That being said, we're like the closest it's ever been. Now, for the fun fact though, we all have a matching mole behind our right knee. I don't know, like, it's so wild.
That is so funny.
Yeah, it's like we were meant to be together. So
yes, that's awesome. Yeah, I did not expect that.
I know. When people ask me like a fun fact about myself, I'm thinking, well, I kind of just, especially in this scenario, I kind of just rambled about myself. So I think my family's fun. I love my family. We're all a bunch of goofballs, but
awesome.
They're my best friends. So yeah, so we all have this same matching little mole freckle behind our right knee. So I think I've always thought that was cool.
Yes. And also just wanted to say, is there anything that you'd like to say before we end? Can you tell, I guess, the viewers and then those that'll watch the replay where they can find you?
Yeah. So my Instagram is at Kaite Conway. So it's just KAITE CONWAY. I guess that's a fun fact. My real name is Caitlin, not Catherine. So I spell Katie a little bit differently. It's just to trip everybody up. My mom says it's because I always have to be difficult. So
oh, you're just different. That's good.
Yeah. But the Kentucky Resilience Lab podcast, you can find that. We've got some really cool like infographics and even some IG lives on book reviews that we kind of review a variety of different resources that are relevant to the field. So that's just at KY Res RES Lab LAB. So Kentucky Resilience Lab. If you look that up, it'll come up as well. And we're also on Apple Podcast and Spotify.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And like I said, I will link all of her information, her Instagram, her podcast, so that you all can stay tuned and listen to those episodes. We can't wait for season 2. Congrats and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. Happy
Yes,
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yes, you're very welcome. Thank you. Bye. Okay, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. But before we leave, I want to tell you really quick about some cool products that actually correlate very well to everything that we discussed today, all about brain performance. Your brain is very important. You want to fuel your brain with the right food, with the right supplements. As I'm studying in school, becoming a master herbalist and traditional doctor of naturopathy, I find that there are some things that our body needs. Yes, I'm all for a whole foods diet, and that's what I recommend all my clients, to everyone that knows me knows that I'm all about that and eating organic and fresh as possible. But there are just some things that you cannot get on your own from our food. And that goes back to just the cleanness of food, what's available over the years and over the hundreds of years. You know, things have been modified and so on and so forth. But I just wanted to talk about a couple products with Arbonne that I use regularly that I have noticed a difference in my body. Of course, I'm not a medical doctor. Everything that we've discussed previously, we're not making any claims, so I can make no promises, but these are awesome products and they're very clean. Okay, so the first one that I wanted to talk about is Mind Health. Everything comes in these little sticks, so they come in powder form. You can mix them as much as you like. I actually take a green shot every single morning, and I put this Mind Health, it's cherry limeade flavored, into my greens, and I enjoy it. People call it like the healthy Xanax. Kind of funny, but it helps you with your cognitive function and focus. It has B vitamins and it has certain supplements in it that help build your brain cells and support cognitive function. It helps with cognitive performance as well as memory and learning. It has grapeseed extract. It has a derivative of sunflower seeds that helps with the structural component of your brain and supporting your normal function and health, as well as CoQ10, which is an antioxidant that helps support cellular function, and vitamin B12, which contributes to normal neurological and psychological function, as well as cognitive performance. So you can actually look up CoQ10 and read different studies and find information on the impact on your brain. It's absolutely amazing. You'll be able to tell a difference if you don't take it. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention are everyone's Arbonne favorite. They're called Fizz sticks. They come in 3 different flavors. I actually have it in my cup here. It's what I've been sipping on. They come in strawberry, pomegranate, and citrus, my husband's favorite. So these are a great way to get an energy boost, but without the crash. So I used to be a Red Bull girl. I used to be all about Monster Zero until I found out everything that's in those cans. These are an alternative way to get plant-based caffeine. It's 55 milligrams of caffeine that's derived from Guarana green tea, which is the green tea leaf, which is the most important part of the green tea. And it also has ginseng root. So it helps support physical activity and performance. It's naturally derived caffeine. So as I mentioned, you won't get that crash. So like, I was a coffee snob, okay? I still have an amazing coffee maker that I keep for when we have guests over that still have a preference for coffee. But I would drink it in the morning and then I would crash in the afternoon, 2, 3 o'clock. You know, we all get that lazy, sluggish feeling. I no longer have that. This also has taurine. It's an amino acid that helps support your energy. It has the CoQ10 antioxidant for your brain function. It has chromium that helps support your blood sugar levels. It has no sugar added, so it's not going to spike your insulin levels. If that is a concern of yours, it has riboflavin, which helps metabolize your carbohydrates, fats, and proteins to provide energy. And it also has niacin that helps support energy yielding metabolism of micronutrients. So it's low calorie, it's maltodextrin free, gluten free, cruelty free, absolutely amazing. So if you want a sample of any of the things that I mentioned, feel free to send me a message. You can email me from my profile as well, or my email is thefiteventlady@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to either meet up with you if you're in the Louisville area or send it to your home, straight to your front door. But thank you all so much for watching. The replay will be available. Please let me know what you think. If there's someone that you'd like to hear from in particular, something that's health or wellness related, a topic that you'd like for me to find someone to speak to. But stay tuned. Next week, we're going to have Victoria Niels. She has like so many designations. I can't even remember all the acronyms, but she is a board certified nutritionist and her specialty is autoimmune disease. We're going to be talking about autoimmune disease and the correlation to fertility, something that I've actually found as I've been studying. So it's going to be amazing. So come back, invite your friends, and I will see you all later. Have a great Monday. And yeah,